Well, hello there and welcome to Marketing Strategies for the New Normal. It is my utter privilege to guide you through this first part of a three-part series we've put together for you to help you with your marketing in terms of marketing strategy, your online marketing and your social media to help cope with the new business environment we find ourselves in. And first and foremost, I have to welcome my wonderful, wonderful co-star, or in fact, the star of today's show, Grant Difford, founder and head of strategy at Waking Giants. Grant, how are you doing?
Very good. Thank you, Ambrose. Thanks for the kind introduction.
Well, it's very deserved, my friend. And obviously, you and I are working a lot together in the marketingcompany.com. We can touch on that later on today. And what we were really focused on for today, Grant, was, of course, strategy, which is really something close to your heart, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think having a plan, certainly in times like these, is really important. It's something that can guide you, something you can stick to, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be so rigid. It has to be adaptable. It has to be based on data. It has to be based on the things you can control. What we often see is people either not having a plan or having a plan that's too rigid that they can't adapt. So what I try and do is look at simple strategies that can move you quickly and you can get outcomes, results, and then that gives you momentum.
Perfect. Thanks, Grant. So obviously two things to pick up on that. What we're doing right now is recording today's live webinar right now as a backup plan for the fact that both in Australia and New Zealand, there seems to be a massive burden in the middle of the day with school kids. I'm sure people are streaming Netflix more than ever before. And we had issues around connections around these live training sessions. So hence we had to adapt our plan. We still want to run them at time. In fact, now we're going to do those live sessions as a live coaching session to give extra value to people at their hour of need, so to speak. But more importantly, it's about learning to adapt. So we stayed true to we want to give training, but we need to adapt to the environment. We have actually contacted the Prime Minister and our local MP. Haven't got a response yet, so hopefully we can reduce some sort of burden on the actual internet. We've got ultra-fast broadband to our business door, but of course we can't talk about the overloading Trans-Tasman and such like. So I know, Grant, this is something close to your heart. If I can sort of pick up from the bottom of this next slide, biggest mistake we saw in the GFC or global financial crisis back in 2008 when it rumbled its way across to New Zealand was most people put their head in the sand and did nothing when it came to their response. What do you see as major risks?
A couple of things. If you stop marketing, you essentially allow your competitors to take your position in the market. Same in the GFC, I spoke to a major consumer and construction brand, and they said, we've not grown in the last year. And I said, what have you done? They said, well, we stopped all marketing to save money, and they lost market share. So it's very simple. Even if you have a few $100s, make sure it's going in the right spot. The second thing is marketing is becoming far more sophisticated, but the thing at the heart of it is to remember you're always marketing to a human being. We're not marketing to a website, we're not marketing to a blog, we're not marketing to robots, well, not yet. Remember, the messages have to be human, they have to be relevant, they have to be empathetic, specifically right now, and they have to add value because competition is easier and larger than ever. So being very human about your message and the way you communicate, I think is really right now and the future more than ever.
I absolutely agree. And look, you and I have talked off air on this as well. We're in a role right now, when we're training people in the sales space, we're often saying to them right now is don't focus on being a salesperson, just focus on being a person, be a good human being, and you'll gain massive goodwill and trust moving forward. So I guess the way you and I talk a lot off air, Grant, is what do people need to do right now? And then what do they need to do to build to the long-term future? So what's your main view on that?
Well, look, I think we've possibly surpassed all of the sympathetic and the look after each other and the constant COVID-19 messaging, which was all completely appropriate, but also it traps us in a mindset. So what we're seeing now, certainly in New Zealand into week 2, is actually proactive value addition. So look, right now it's about language, it's about empathy, it's about adjusting your marketing. Once again, not turning it off, just giving it a once over, make sure it's relevant, maybe back off on a few things, maybe come forward on a few things, but people are still consuming. They are still consuming, but they're doing it in a different way, and that's where you need to adapt. What does that look like for the future? Well, look, right now, if you're not looking hard at your business or the way you market, then get into it really quickly. I'm seeing people adapt literally by the hour, by the day, new services, more innovation, more scale, omissions. We're going to stop doing this because this doesn't work in context, and maybe it hasn't ever worked. The digital world is really is exploding. It's been growing at a phenomenal rate the last few years, but the new normal won't be good enough. Better is the requirement. Better systems, better communications, better services, more value, and essentially, I think to not only survive but actually grow is being really far more adaptable. I think possibly when the good times are around, we get a bit sloppy, we get a bit blasé about what we're doing. We possibly don't try the things we should be trying, and now people are being forced to.
I absolutely agree, and I love that. I know that you and I are really passionate about, you know, embracing new services, embracing new ways of operating our businesses to add value to more people at the relevant time. But if I could pick up on a key point there, I love the, you know, forget the whole let's go back to normal and forget the whole context around the new normal. Better is the requirement. That should really be our aim. And to do that, part of that is about being brave, right?
Yeah, you know, we're going to see, certainly from a leadership point of view, a lot around being resilient. Now, resilient is
excellent. So we just lost you a moment ago. So I know that something you're already passionate about here is about leading by example. Grant, are you still with us?
only achieved through action.
Excellent. Grant, we lost you for about 30 seconds there. If you can just repeat this from when I mentioned to you about it's about being brave.
Yeah, it's all about resilience. Resilience is built through action, and it's really the only thing you can do. And being brave and stepping into new spaces. It's not about being reckless, but it's about accepting that growth comes on the other side of fear. And I think that's something we've got to learn really quickly right now. And being brave doesn't mean big things. It means just moving forward. Innovation comes mostly from improving something that already exists.
I love that. And what I'd say is, you know, being brave is also knowing to trial something. And if it's not working, to essentially walk away, because it's so easy to think, oh, be headstrong and say, I'm going to push through. When in fact, test and measure in the world of marketing is so much easier now. If it's not working, stop it. Put your energy somewhere else. Now, here we are. 8 core strategies. I know we're going to break through these in a moment, but just sort of top line, Grant, why have you picked out these 8 core strategies for people to look at in their marketing?
Really straightforward. There's a million things you can do, but these 8, I believe, are things you can either deal with now, actually get on with, possibly with limited resource or time or investment, but equally they're looking of how they'll help you into the future. Content strategy, you can start today, you can start right now, but it might not play out for a few weeks or a few months. But then current customers and a new service, you can generate a new opportunity very quickly, communicate it very quickly, and generate new opportunity and even revenue right now. Once again, with context and with compassion, but there's no reason not to be creating an value with your current customer base. Things like mission and values, what we're seeing more and more companies have been operating in business as usual. We know businesses grow significantly and become more stable with a really strong mission and a set of values to operate around. That can take a little longer to bed in, but that's the payoff for the long term. And I think any business that really doubles down on that right now will benefit in a year, 18 months, 2 years, 5 years down the line. Ignore it at your peril, really.
I would absolutely back you up on that. What I like also is I say to everybody right now is as we work through each of these steps, you really got to ask yourself either how can I get better at one of these that I already feel to myself to be pretty good at, or which one of these is something I might not have looked at for a period of time? It could even be the mission and values. It could be around the personal branding. What could I do to improve in that particular area? And Grant, you and I often talk, they don't have to do all of them from day one, but they've just got to do more than they did last week, right?
Yeah, look, don't try all 8. I mean, that's not the point right now. There's a lot going on. Pick the ones that you have the path of least resistance to doing. Maybe
Yes.
it's where you're confident, maybe it's where you have the resource, but if it's something you haven't tried, try it. There's very little risk in many of these things. The only risk is not doing anything.
I absolutely agree. So content strategy, I know this is something at Waking Giants you've helped people with in particular. What are some key lessons for people to focus on in the content strategy side of things?
Look, the biggest barrier we see, and I've suffered it myself, is when it comes down to putting yourself out there as a brand or as a person. There are so many platforms out there, and there's so much that can be done. People often get paralyzed by even the thought of it. So the tip here is really look at short and long. We currently use lead magnets at scale, and it generates between 80 and 100 leads a month using paid traffic. That's sharing high value content upfront and giving it away. Now, the biggest challenge we have is people are scared to give away their IP. But remember, there's very little that's new. It's what's different is the way you do it. So by giving a little away, sort of leaving that breadcrumb trail, whether it's through video content or guest blogging, you start to get into leverage of audience, you build thought leadership. I think the problem with a lot of content is people want a response or a ROI straight away. Content strategy is a medium to long-term strategy, but like planting a tree, when's the best time? 20 years ago. When's the next best time? Right now. And it can be very simple. If you're great at writing, write. If you're great at video, create a video and share it. It's free to distribute. So once again, even with a podcast, use your phone, record it, use something like SoundCloud, distribute it on your LinkedIn or Facebook, wherever your audience is. It'll get consumed, and it may not be at scale, but it will get consumed. Build on each layer and just get started. Once again, just get started.
I love that. Free to distribute. Obviously, for those of you who don't have the definition around lead magnets, what you're saying there, Grant, is someone who would naturally sort of hit your website or a landing page, give over their, say, name and email address in order to receive something downloadable of particular value, and then you can manage them. And you said that the traffic there, you're driving through paid online advertising, correct?
Yes, that's right. It can be as simple as a one-page checklist, which we have. We have accountability. We have 10, 12-page strategy plans. The reason we want to give them away is because we want to show that we know what we're doing. And I think people are afraid that you should be paid before you tell. It's an old model. You need to show value straight away. And we use a mix of LinkedIn, AdWords for our audience. And like I say, we're probably at the moment getting between 5 and 10 leads a day in this current climate.
Absolutely love it. And especially because this is the sort of information a lot of sales reps traditionally would give away face to face, but we don't have sales reps face to face. So we might as well give it away one, come all, and access a new market or reattract the existing market. Now, this I love because this is obviously the ultimate around the whole cross-selling concept, you know, leveraging off the existing goodwill and relationships you've got and going after new things. What do you mean by current customers, new services?
Well, we talked about adaptation and innovation right now. It's certainly something that if you have a long-term approach to your client relationship, which we particularly do, and I know you do, Ambrose, as you evolve, your customers will evolve. So what we try and do is say, look at the market and say, hey, look, this will be appropriate to you now versus what you did last week. And I mean, My Food Bag is a great one. They started with what I would say is a premium offering, beautiful meals, etc. But their idea is essentially to create convenience through really, really good quality food in our fast-paced world, which is just slowed down a touch. But you'll see there's Bargain Box, which is I don't know what the phrase they would use is a budget option. But remember, they're still providing a core service. They're providing food at convenience, at good pricing relevant to your needs. So whether you have a high disposable income or a slightly lower, they have adapted to both parts of the market, which allows them to deliver their core service, but in different customer demographics. And you can do this in many ways. If we're seeing a lot of gyms, a friend of mine had a Pilates studio. Within a week now, she's got online classes. Once again, we're creating new kind of convenience. What we're actually doing by doing that is we're giving our customers and our clients time back in their lives, because they don't have to come to see us. It's
Absolutely.
nice, you don't have to stop it. But what we're actually doing is enabling us to do more business, better business, and less waste, less cost. It can be subscriptions. It can be, how many companies don't have e-commerce, who could?
Mhm.
Probably quite a few, actually. Not everyone can do these things, but everyone can adapt to scale in some way.
Absolutely, and I like the example of, somewhere like a Pilates studio or a gym. Those were kind of the first hit industries, but actually some of the first great examples of people adapting what they do to the existing customers who got goodwill, offering different type of services. Now, if I could just pick up on that, in some situations it will be the classic sort of cross-sell or upsell that McDonald's do. Would you like fries with that, or is that large? But at the same time, sometimes actually downselling right now may be the strategy where people might not be able to access all your products or all your services, but at least if they can keep accessing some, for you, it's an ongoing revenue stream, but long term, you'll keep that client. If someone goes completely away from you because you don't adapt to today's market, then of course you risk them never coming back when the market bounces back in 1, 3, 6, 12 months or whatever it happens to be. Now, personal branding, I know you've got some great examples here, Grant, if you can just tell us a bit more.
Yeah, look, personal branding has been around for a few years. Essentially, I mean, there's some examples here. Nadia Lim, she came from MasterChef. She's built an incredible personal brand in New Zealand, part of My Food Bag, books, kids shows, all sorts. It's about realizing that people do business with people. They don't do business with companies. And Simon Sinek, famously, develop the concept of why. People buy why you do what you do, not what you do. And that really links to a personal brand. So when it comes to the times that we're in, the likes of LinkedIn or any platform that hosts your community, building a personal profile in there is going to be so important, and is already so important. I know I've been spending a lot of time developing mine over the last 7 months on LinkedIn. What it's done is it's given me a platform to talk to the things that are important to me, specifically around leadership and strategy, which are really, really important right now. You've got Seth Godin, who famously comes from the marketing world, but is a publisher, a great writer. He has a daily email list that he hasn't changed in, I think, about 10 or 15 years, but it has
Wow.
hundreds of thousands of subscribers. You've got Gary Vaynerchuk, who is a very polarizing character because of the language he uses, but once again, he's created incredible personal brand through his wine business, which he's leveraged into the marketing world, and then he's leveraged back into things like K-Swiss, and he's basically created a global community which will work within anything he does. So he's got a wine brand from it, a shoe brand. He now does sports trading cards. So that's all because people are buying into his philosophy, not what he
Yes.
does. And
Yes.
and that's a great reality. Same with Tony Robbins. I was never particularly a fan of him, but
Hmm.
when I watched I'm Not Your Guru, I understood a little bit more about him. So ultimately, this is about being brave.
Yes.
I'm not a huge fan of being on video, but I've
Hmm.
forced myself to, because this is the way we communicate. This is the way we can connect with each other. So there's a lot of ways. Create a personal blog. If you love cupcakes, write
Hmm.
the best cupcake blog in the world. Do videos.
Absolutely. Yes.
I know someone who's a chef. She did a blog. It ended up her writing 2 books,
Hmm.
just because of really being a personal brand. Once again, start somewhere, build on it, get brave, keep going.
Perfect. And look, I like that. In some cases it is about us stretching into new channels or mediums. But as you said, be authentic and be yourself. Don't pretend to be something you're not. The world's so transparent that you'll be caught out in the space of days, not necessarily even months, from that perspective. Now, this is something obviously dear to our hearts because we've essentially formed a joint venture around the marketingcompany.com because we can leverage off the skills you and your passionate team have and the passion and knowledge that we've gained over many years ourselves. I love the one about not only what Lewis Road did for their own brand of milk and obviously milk products, but the tie-up in New Zealand between them and the iconic brand of Whittaker's. Tell us a bit more about that.
I mean, this is the greatest example we've got, I believe, in New Zealand, because what you're doing is this is about dropping the ego. Honestly, as Winnie the Pooh said to Piglet, life is more fun with two. And I think this is a time of collaboration. And probably 5 years ago, the word collaboration was overused by marketers and business people, whereas collaboration right now is the ability to move forward together. Now, some people might not be able to move forward on their own. And like you say, we, over several months, talked to each other and we saw an opportunity where actually we were better off working together than alone because we saw all this potential. And I think what Whittaker's have done as a Kiwi brand, and also with a high market share in New Zealand, I believe certainly, if not equal to Cadbury or more, I'm not 100% sure, they leverage really well. So Lewis Road Creamery were a really disruptive brand. They've gone into a lot of brand extension. They've done competing products to like Bailey's. They've done butter. They've just launched into the US, which is incredibly difficult, grass-fed butter. Then what they do is they go, well, hold on, we do chocolate, they do milk, let's blend. They've also worked with Plunkett to do fundraising, so you've got the philanthropy component. But look, while they're doing good things, remember they're building brand value and brand equity in other people's communities. K-Bar, I mean, I'm not a Kiwi by birth, but I'm aware of the K-Bar, but I'm sure a lot of Kiwis will remember from their childhood the K-Bars in the dairies. Smart, because what you're doing is you're selling on nostalgia. You're taking people back to when they were young. I mean, another great example is Lego. I mean, I grew up on Lego. I adore it. And we've got a second wave now of nostalgia where I find joy in buying my daughter Lego. But now Lego is Star Wars, it's Friends, it's Marvel, it's once again. So Lego really turned their business around by joint ventures, licensing, and leverage. So now a film comes out, Star Wars comes out, they got a whole bunch of new toys to push. And now the adults are telling their kids, you need to be playing with Lego because it's great.
Absolutely.
So you have a generational leverage through consumer. Once again, doesn't have to be complicated. Maybe drop some ego and some barriers and say, hey, look, how can we work together? And that's something we've been working on over the last, well, feels like months, but kind of the last 2 or 3 weeks at pace. And look,
at pace.
We've moved quicker together.
Yes. Definitely, and it creates some accountability, and I think, if I can reiterate for the third point, third time is, lose your ego, reach out to people who've got a similar customer base. You can leverage off each other's knowledge or passion or experience, and it's about really, is there more to be gained together, the ultimate synergy, than it is working either against each other or working solo. It's certainly a lot more fun. Now, this next slide I find particularly awkward because you went and did some online stalking, and I like that you confessed about that, but didn't actually show me this until you showed me the side slope. So I'll let you have 1 minute on this because I don't want to spend too long staring at my own face.
It's such a kind face though. Look, listening. It's so funny. We have a bit of a trick. So when we're working with a client, the first thing I do is make them talk, because if you allow them to tell their story, what they will do is start to provide insight into what their needs are, what their challenges are, and sometimes what their pain is. And what we want to do is basically understand. So with data everywhere nowadays, there's no such thing as privacy anymore. We need to get over that concept. So what I've learned about Ambrose over communicating with him here through LinkedIn, through coffees, through videos, the webinars, he has a huge passion for his family, a huge passion to help others. Philanthropy and faith is a huge part of his business, his life, and the way he operates in his value system. He changed his career through personal values. All of these things build up an understanding of what is important to him. Bear in mind, we're not talking about his profession, we're not talking about the things he likes, but him as a human being. And I think this is a time more than ever that we actually have to listen to what our customers want. And something I did as the COVID-19 thing really kicked off about 10 days ago, I spent about 2-3 days on LinkedIn just watching what was going on. And rather than just jump in and provide narrative, I was very careful about what narrative I want to provide and who I wanted to provide it to. Equally, we sent out our newsletter of some information from Ambrose and I about regional partners funding yesterday. I deliberately waited until just a little bit of calm, until people would just go over that initial break. So listening in your marketing is going to be more important than ever, because ultimately the customer will tell you everything you need to know. You just have to be prepared to listen and respond appropriately.
I absolutely agree. And if I could just pick up on that point as well, I think this is a prime opportunity for our marketing team and our sales team to become fully aligned. Because although our sales teams around the world often have happy ears, they'll hear what they want to hear, they've often spent years listening to customers, and we need engaged strategists and marketers in the business. And we've just been paying for many, many years, in many cases face-to-face, to go out there and listen. But remembering, as Grant just said, listening in the here and now, and in some cases just waiting a few days or waiting a week for things to settle down, is what we're finding really, really successful. The timing of these marketing sessions is actually spot on for New Zealand and for Australia to some degree as well. So the getting online, obviously you guys are a digital agency, you live and breathe in this world in particular. What are a couple of golden rules around this?
Look, I don't want to be down on it, but if you're not online, you've got to get online really quickly. Even if it's just to build brand, to build awareness. It's not, you don't have to be online with e-commerce. Some businesses can't do that, but awareness and the ability to be found is critical, especially as, potentially little beautiful New Zealand will be isolated for a little while. The trade routes will open more and more as things become safer. So therefore, we've got to stop thinking we can just do business in New Zealand. You can do business anywhere in the world. So being online is important. The example, there are 4 key things. Create a competitive advantage. If your competitors are not online and you are, you've already won. Building brand. You've got to build brand nowadays. Consumers want to know who they're doing business with. Generate sales, pretty straightforward. We know that generally a good lead for us through our website might cost us $3 to $5, but generates between $70,000 and $100,000. If we're not there, then it can't happen. And look, attracting talent. Most businesses building their brand online will start to attract talent. And we've got a client in particular that are using pretty much the whole online brand presence to attract talent from around the world. Not to sell, but to build talent pools. So it's really, really important. And this is a great example. This is Coda Sports. It's someone I'm coaching, or have been coaching for about 15 months. It's a startup in the sports agency world, particularly around rugby. They've built their business on personal brand and Instagram. That's it, nothing else. They are now outmaneuvering the world's biggest sports agencies because they don't have the cost. They have gone deep on their customer. Their #1 position in the market is doing more for their players, and the players are flocking to them. In fact, it's now disrupting the market so much, it's starting to upset a few people. My advice is keep going, be brave, stick to your values, and yeah, they're doing really well, but they do everything through Instagram. It's amazing.
And what I love about that is the fact, as you said before, it is affordable to go online. We can test and measure to be online. And we often forget the fact that most businesses, when you interview business owners and you say, what's your #1 asset? They invariably say our people. So remembering, part of the purpose of building a really good online presence, either personally or as a business, is about attracting that next generation of talent. If people are going to be your critical competitive advantage, you've got to have the best people, A players, now on type scenario. Now, this is something I know that members of your team wake up in the morning with nothing but joy, Grant, to analyze the data or the data. Tell us the key things to keep in mind. You have 2 minutes.
But there's so much information out there. We don't have to take a punt anymore. We can sort of take a punt with an educated guess around data. What you're seeing on your screen here is a tool called Mangles. We've got Facebook Business Insights, and we've got LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Between these three tools, I can isolate and identify intent-based demand, where my core customer is, what their role is, what they like, and what they like to do in their social time. Now, this is a little bit scary and we don't particularly like it, but we give this information away every single day. There's no coincidence that the adverts that are put in front of you are put in front of you. So look, what most people do is they'll look at search and they go, right, there's 1,000 people looking for my product per month. What we say is look around the fringes, make your money go a bit further, look for those niches, and essentially use the data to inform your decisions. Not be dictatorial about it, but let it help you. So one of our key clients, I know they love marlin fishing. So there's a way for me to understand, well, okay, when's marlin fishing season? What's the search? What magazines are there available, etc., etc. So this is not about big data. It's about the basics of understanding what the market wants, aligning what you have, adapting, and then presenting that offer online or even in person. But start to use data, even the most basic way, to help you make new decisions.
Definitely, and as you said, you don't have to be traditional, don't have to go after what everyone else is going after. If you're smart, you can look around the fridges. Now, finally, the mission and value side of things, something you and I are really passionate about, both personally in our own business, but also in helping our customers. A couple of golden rules around this.
Firstly, have a mission. It's pretty straightforward. Many companies have an arbitrary statement that they don't actually follow. And many companies, in fact, I went to Brené Brown in Sydney. There were 4,000 people in the crowd. She said, how many people have values? Most people put their hands up. She asked another question, which I couldn't quite remember. Half the people put their hands down. She said, how many people operationalize your values? And only about 11 of us had our hands up. Now that's terrifying. So it means, like our marketing, we're treating these things as unimportant. We need to have a mission to keep us on focus, whether it be our business operation or our marketing and our people. And those values will drive the way we do business, and therefore will attract the right people to do business with us. This is something that you need to put out into market. It needs to be part of your marketing, but bearing in mind, if you fake it, you'll get caught.
Yes.
It's really straightforward. So this helps you align with the people that you do business with. We really do look at the values of the people that we're doing business with before we engage with them, because it's important. It means that you essentially, our number one value is grow together. It means you are going on this journey together. We are not a supplier-client relationship. We are, yes. And it means that we over deliver on our strategy to them. So the future for brands is really strong missions, really strong values, and be ready to be held accountable to them by your consumers, because the airlines will be right now. Yes. People who are not getting refunds. This is the thing that will hold you steady when the storm is coming.
Absolutely, and I think if I can comment here, Grant, particularly today's about marketing strategy, this is going to help you right now remind your customers of your mission, remind your customers of your core values, demonstrate it every single day or every single week. But this is what's going to build your brand long term. And again, it's going to unify your team as well right now. Now, we've only got a couple of minutes left for the whole thing. So Grant, just this sort of 3 Venn diagram overlaps of the circles. What are the things to keep in mind on this?
So look, we said earlier that there are so many things you can do. Let's get smart and let's get something going really quickly. So I've chosen 3. Content marketing. So you can create a one-page checklist in a PDF out of Word, put your logo on it, put your contact details on it. 10 ways to help your dog be happy at home while you're working from home, for argument's sake. Yeah. You can have a look at search data, write a blog, put it on there, and then you can optimize your LinkedIn profile. Use hashtags, say, hey, look, if anyone's got a dog at home, which I know I have 2, here's a few tips to keep them happy while you're working from home. Oh, that's interesting to me. I'll download that. And then tell some stories, use the data to see what people respond to, maybe get them on your database. And then in 2-3 weeks time, say at the end of the month, you realize that people buy their dog food online. Hey, here's 10% off the dog food line that we've got. Okay. So you suddenly have a content and database strategy around personal branding, because we're dog lovers. you've got something you can offer me as a value, and you use content to educate me before I engage with you. I've run through that really, really quickly, but this is
I
how
know.
you can move at pace,
Yes.
and with core content that you have maybe in here. You just got to get it down on a page. And you're thinking about, someone might buy the dog food tomorrow. They might buy it
Yes.
in 3 weeks. They might buy it in 2 months. But you've starting to build brand. Once you've done it that time, see what works, do some more, see what works, do some more, and keep going.
And the great news is, of course, Grant, is people can reach out to you via LinkedIn with questions and emails anyway. So last couple of things, look, a really simple formula. I know, you talked about nothing is that new in the world. What are these 3 things about?
Look, the world is complicated, so our job is to make it a lot simpler. Watch the customer, understand what they're doing before you make a move. Just, Gary Vaynerchuk says, attention is everything. So understanding it is also your #1 priority. Create a conversation. Don't sell to them. Create a conversation, because a conversation is 2-way. Get them to ask questions. Hey, I like that idea. How does this work? Once again, drop the ego. Give them the answer.
Yes.
Give them the answer to the problem, and then provide value. So even by responding, you're providing value. Say, hey, here's a link to something. I'm obsessive about it.
I
Last
know you are.
night there was big infrastructure announcements by the government. I've got 2 big clients in engineering and construction. So I flicked them the link, say, hey, are you up to date with this? And one of them came back and said, yeah, I'm all over it.
Mm-hmm.
That is
Yeah,
adding
even if
value.
that's Yeah, I'm absolutely. I mean, I'm stunned nowadays with what we give away content-wise and training-wise versus what we were doing 10, 15 years ago. But as you said, this is normal now. You've got to absolutely give massive value. So one parting shot or one parting suggestion here, Grant?
Keep it simple. Get started. Don't be afraid. It's all a bit scary. We work in it every single day, and it changes every day. So just start real simple. And look, very little in marketing is going to be high risk unless you're spending tens of thousands of dollars on print or something that is tangible. It's relatively low risk, and you can move quickly. You can move really, really quickly. And yeah, just have fun with it. If you've got a great business and you've been around in business for 5 or 10 years, you've got a lot of testimonials, you've got a lot of experiences, just share them. And look, remember, humans love stories. They operate within the paradigm of stories, to tell stories, and you'll be sweet. You'll be sweet as.
I love it. Grant Difford, it's my privilege to say thank you so much for the fabulous value you've created. Obviously, people have got access to the handout. Next week in the series, we've got the fantastic Cam Wilkes talking about more website, SEO and SEM. And a week after, the incredible Chris Young talking about more social media. So you can be reached out, obviously, via LinkedIn to Grant Difford, as well as via Waking Giants. I'm, of course, Ambrose Blowfield. We are themarketingcompany.com and Waking Giants. Be sure to take action.